What's up, everybody? Jared Sandler with you. Hope you had a great weekend, and hopefully this week is getting off on the right foot. Wanted to wrap up the weekend of sports, the last week of sports, with some Monday sports thoughts. During the NFL season, during the college football season, if that happens, Mondays will typically be dedicated to football, but we're in this time where everything's jumbled together, so want to hit the Cowboys, want to hit the Rangers, want to hit the Mavericks, and their respective leagues. Let's start in the NFL. Jamal Adams gets traded to the Seahawks, and the Seahawks paid quite the price for it. They gave up a first and a third in this upcoming draft, and then a first in 2022, as well as safety Bradley McDougald. The Jets in making that deal ended quite the draft haul. Jamal Adams is now going to be a Seattle Seahawk. And Seattle's a team that has obviously shown an ability to value and utilize safeties. And, I think sometimes teams that have a track record of success at a certain position are able to demonstrate that maybe more than others, they know how to use that position. So I am curious to see how the Seahawks use Jamal Adams. With that said, it doesn't seem like that's the Cowboys. And so there are a few reasons why I'm happy the Cowboys didn't make this trade. First of all, let's look at the price tag. I am still a believer that, while yes, Jamal Adams is an impact player, he's arguably the best safety at his position. You follow the money. And in the NFL, evaluators have determined through ample research that the money goes to certain positions for a reason, because those positions are the most valuable. They swing the pendulum the most, and safety is not one of those positions. With that said, I'm aware that there are certain players who are able to supersede that generality, and Jamal Adams has the potential to do that, to be that. But the Cowboys also haven't really shown an ability to utilize safeties. When was the last time the Cowboys had a safety who you're like, holy smokes, this guy is making a big impact. They're putting him in a position to succeed. Now, the caveat here is that they've got a different defensive coaching staff with Mike Nolan. So I guess we just don't know, in that regard. But clearly the Cowboys do not value the safety. The money shows it. Their lack of engagement in this trade shows that. But here's the other reason why I'm happy that they didn't make this trade. And again, this has nothing to do with, my thoughts on Jamal Adams as a player. He's obviously a super stud. You're giving up a lot of draft capital. And if you're the Cowboys, you'd be doing that as a team who desperately needs that because of all the big money deals that they've distributed. Paying Amari big bucks. You're going to end up paying Dak big bucks in all likelihood, but if not, then it's $70 million over the next 2 years. You've paid Zeke, in my opinion, inexplicably, but you've paid Zeke. You've already extended Jalen. You've got other guys. Your offensive line's been paid quite the money, and understandably so. But I guess my point is, in the NFL, yes, you can always manipulate the cap. All right, Mike Fisher says there's no such thing as cap hell, and I don't agree with that, because I think ultimately you can get yourself so entangled in wiring by manipulating contracts that eventually you just have to, you just gotta just throw in the towel and say, all right, we gotta clear this. We gotta get a fresh start financially. I would have been in favor of getting Jamal Adams if you'd get Jadeveon Clowney as well and just absolutely go all in. But I think you would need another pass rusher for me to feel like you're truly going all in. So to give up all that for Jamal Adams, knowing that you're now going to have to pay him the money, and he has all the leverage in the world because you're not going to let him walk after giving it up. So that's another big contract. And you're losing the ability at leverage rounds to bring in cheap labor who can impact you. I just think that the trade has the writings on the wall of doing what the Cowboys typically do, which is have a lot of big names that lead people to think they're going to be great, they're going to be this, but then you look and they're flawed. It's like a girl that looks awesome from afar because she's got all the makeup in the world on, but as you get closer, you see some of the flaws. or a guy for that matter. So I think ultimately my final thoughts on this: Jamal Adams, tremendous player. That's why the price tag was so expensive. Hey, the Seahawks feel like they can use him best. Great, go for it. I don't think this makes them a Super Bowl favorite by any means. Maybe not even a Super Bowl contender, so I'm not quite sure exactly why they made the move. Would have been fun to watch Jamal Adams as a Cowboy, yes, but I think ultimately this is one of those instances where the big name sexy player, the headline stealing move, which draws a lot of positive reaction initially, but ends up maybe not being as fruitful as you'd like, was avoided here by the Cowboys. Just my opinion. All right, let's go to the Dallas Mavericks. They are in Florida getting ready to start the season here this week. I think the seeding games are going to be super interesting because on one hand, you're cutting out the fat, right? So while the Suns are for some reason still around in Brooklyn, you've got some bad teams that are not participating. So most of your games are going to be against teams that are either really good or are really playing for something. And I separate the two because there are going to be certain teams that aren't. And there's going to be an interesting dynamic with teams maybe like the Lakers, who they don't need to put their foot on the pedal 100 miles an hour. And, the team like the Rockets, that they've kind of seemed a little out of sorts with guys showing up late and, not sure kind of where they are. And maybe they'll end up being amazing. I don't know. I think it's really important for the Mavs to obviously move off of the 7th spot. I don't think they have a chance to beat the Lakers or Clippers in a series. I actually think that they could make it tougher against the Lakers than against the Clippers, despite the fact I think the Lakers are the better team. But I think the Clippers match up in a way, and the Mavs match up in a way against the Clippers to where that'd be a 5-game series. I think they could take the Lakers to 6. Doubtful, but maybe 7. I'd say a month and a half ago I would have told you that I don't think the Mavs can beat anyone in the top 3. So even if they get to the 6, which is not going to be easy, but even if they were to get to the 6, Denver'd still do work against them. I'm starting to believe that the Denver-Dallas series would go 7 games. And at that point, coin flip. I just think that, while the Mavericks record is what it is, and Bill Parcells says, your record is what you are what your record says you are. That's a little unfair in the Mavs case because they have not played healthy for most of the year. And they're not going to be totally healthy without Brunson, without Dwight Powell, but they will have KP and Luka, which they have not had those guys running together for a bulk of the year. Either way, I'm excited to see these guys get their first playoff action. I'm not really worried about the moment for them. Luka playing in Europe seems like that's something that he's checked off his list. KP, not as sure. I don't know that, he's got that sort of experience, but I'm just, for whatever reason, not worried about it. What I will say, though, is that Dwight Powell's absence could end up being a big loss. They're going to need more significant minutes probably from Boban. Not 30 minutes by any means, but, those days of him maybe not playing at all probably are not existent right now. And they'd also need Dodo to step up as a big 3-and-D guy. They absolutely need him. So, anyway, Lakers, Clippers, see you later. Denver, 7 games. Anyone else, the Mavs move on. Those are my thoughts, but I'm really excited for this. All right, finally, the Rangers, not a good start to the weekend, going 1-2 against the Rockies. The Corey Kluber injury, bad news. Hoping for some good news today, but just the fact it's a shoulder and the back of the shoulder, not very encouraging. There's definitely at least a chance that he hasn't. He's thrown his last pitch for the Rangers this year. To me, while the offense has struggled and it absolutely needs to be more productive, the defense has been the most disappointing thing. The Rangers made 3 errors, but they had more plays that went unmade, and you can make a case that the Rangers could have won the entire series, won all 3 games of the series. If they played good defense, certainly should have won 2 out of 3, even with the bad offense. And I've always believed this, it probably applies in most sports, but in baseball, you've got your best teams, and you've got your worst teams, and then you've got everyone in the middle. And a lot of times what ultimately separates how we look at those teams are those teams' abilities to maximize wins when they're playing well and minimize losses when they aren't. And I don't think you can look at this Rangers lineup and say they're, as a team, they're playing well. But they had a chance to max or minimize the damage and take 2 out of 3, despite the fact they were hitting really poorly. But the defense just escaped them. So, yeah, that to me was what was most disappointing. It's definitely possible this team is going to struggle to score runs, but I need more than 3 games before I'm fully set on that. But what I don't think is that this team is going to be an offensive juggernaut. No one thought that going into the year, certainly not now. And if that's going to be the case, every run is even that much more precious, and your defense is even that much more important. All right, there you go. That's our Monday Sports Dump. Jared Sandler here with you. Stay tuned. More content throughout the week. Have a great week, and thanks so much for hanging out with me this morning.